Back in the mid-2010s, Southampton Football Club were the envy of pretty much every football club in England outside the elite. But since then, it's been a little bit downhill for the Saints, and they were relegated from the Premier League last season. But it's far better in the EFL, isn't it? Welcome along to EFL Debate, everyone. We're here to discuss Southampton and how they can bounce back into the Premier League in the next year or two under Russ Martin, as well as reflecting on the last few years and how they can correct some of the mistakes. So delighted to get stuck into it, and who better to be joined to discuss it all than Martin Sanders from the account Football Martin and from the Southampton Way podcast. How are you, Martin?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to the EFL now. I'm looking forward to the season resuming and seeing what Russell Martin can do at our football club.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope he can make a big impact. Before we get stuck in, we should say this is also available on YouTube and Spotify. If you're watching this on any of those platforms, do give us a subscribe because it helps us out a lot. And you can also check out the other videos once you're done with this one. So, Martin, for me to understand how Southampton are in the situation they're in at the moment, I suppose you've kind of got to unpack a lot from the last 5 or 6 years of how Southampton have gone from being the school of academy excellence, the sort of the place that's envied by so many, to a club that's now in the Championship. Just talk us through concisely, if you can, because I'm sure there's a lot to unpack, how that sort of downward trajectory has been.
It's been sad to see, to be honest. Goes back, really, I can go back a long way, but I can go back to the promotion to the Premier League last time under the ownership of Marcus Lieber, the Lieber family. Marcus sadly passed away, but it was took on by his family. His daughter, Catalina, she took the football club on, and they were big investors in the club, and they sold a percentage out to a Chinese group, the Geo Group, and he didn't really want to invest in the football club. And it was around the time Pochettino was the manager of the football club. You know, they come up with Nigel Atkins, did really, really well to get in the Premier League. And they obviously wanted to stay in it and grow. And they had big ambitions, like they were really, really big ambitions. And it just, it started really well, had a really good run, and were fantastic under the two managers in Pochettino and then Ronald Koeman. That's, 2-3 top 10 finishes. I think it was 2 7th finishes in the Premier League, and sort of since there, things kind of changed, and Ralph Hasenhüttl will come in, and he was just brought in to kind of, he wanted to steady the ship, but obviously work with a tight budget, and he'd done really, really well, to be fair, on a tight budget. We were never really in danger of relegation, though we were selling a lot of players, we turned over a lot of players. They lost the likes of Adam Lallana, Ricky Lambert, Morgan Schneidlin, Virgil van Dijk come in, and they made good money on a lot of players, and Luke Shaw as well. It was an incredible amount of players that come in and went out the door. Oxlade-Chamberlain, you could just go, the list goes on. It's incredible. And they kind of weren't developing loads of players. There was not loads coming through from the academy. Gio, the Chinese owner, he sold out about 2 years ago, and in comes Sport Republic. And that's kind of where it's gone wrong, to be honest. They've come in with big ambitions. They're an ownership group fronted by Rasmus Ankersen, who was director of football at Brentford. Mm-hmm. He came in, and he's got a backer. They got backers. There's a group of them. Big backer, Serbian backer, that's been putting money into the football club, and that the model was to really kick it on, have several football clubs, and take it from there. And they just made a lot of changes in a short space of time. Like Dragan Solak is the financial backer. I was thinking of his name. I was totally lost my mind for a second, but he was the backer. So there's, and they obviously want to come into the football club and just. They will replace everybody that was there. They wanted to kind of silently come in, invest, put money in, and try and kick the football club on. So that's what they did in the window last summer. They spent 100 million on players, and it just went disastrously wrong. They didn't really want Hasenhüttl as their manager. They stuck with him, and they just made a lot of mistakes as a football club, and the fan base is broken on them now because obviously we got relegated.
You mentioned Ralph Hasenhüttl there, and his sort of ideology, to my understanding, certainly is quite aggressive, high 4-3-3, high pressing, and then sort of quick transitions in the final third. And I got the impression that there's a bit of I suppose, a mismatch, because for a long time the academy style, if you like, was a bit more of the possession style. Do you think that appointing Russ Martin, who's actually built his career mainly on style, he's not actually achieved too much in his career yet, which I think is a big talking point we can come on to, but do you think this shows that the club is willing to go back to that vision of playing a more extreme possession heavy style of football?
It's interesting because they've gone from Hasenhüttl. So as Sport Republic come in, they have Ralph Hasenhüttl, who plays like a high press, like you say, 4-3-3, 4-2-2, and really wants to press teams and go at teams. The players looked a little bit burnt out this year, especially James Ward-Prowse, the key man. He looked tired. I think he looked tired from the start of the season. He looks a little leggy, and I wouldn't be the only person to say that. They don't talk about it in the mainstream press, but that's what I felt. So he was playing a possession-based football under him. They then decided to change attack and bring in Nathan Jones. And Nathan Jones wants to play a totally different style of football. He wants to hit it long and he wants a target man. So they go out, they bought a target man in Paul Onuachu from Genk. Scored 18 goals in the season up until he signed for Southampton in January. And then they decided to part ways with Nathan Jones within a week of signing him. And then they've gone back to... They were struggling to know what to do, I think. They didn't really know the direction they wanted to take the club in. And then they bought in Ruben Selles, who was a backroom member of Hasenhüttl's staff. And all he wants to do is go back to play the same way. But you've those transitions are trying different ideas. The players didn't adapt. And to be fair, I don't think the players were fit enough this season, in my opinion. I don't know if it was because they were burnt out. But then they're going to go, obviously, with Russell Martin. The reason he's been brought in, because they have a philosophy of the way they want to play football. And they obviously want to play it on the deck. And there's no doubt he's been bought in for that exact reason. Does he have the players at the football club to do it at this moment in time? He loses the two players that can do it. So they're going to have to back him. They're going to have to back him in the window.
Well, I think that raises a really interesting point, Martin, which is I've had a little look at the squad, and it's obviously a massive squad.
It's top heavy.
As things stand, top heavy squad, as you'd call it. And I get the impression that the club is going to have to cash in on a few players. Certainly James Ward-Prowse, and then there's a few others that I had in mind. Kyle Walker-Peters, and the Belgian midfielder who's 19, Lavia, as well.
He's incredible.
Really?
Oh, he's unbelievable. Yeah. He's unbelievable. At 19 years old, he's the best midfielder I've ever seen at that age.
Wow. Okay. So is there a world in which he stays on for the championship, or are you pretty certain that he's gonna
Mario Lavia will definitely leave the football club. There's no doubt about it. Man City have a buyback clause that kicks in next summer, so they have first refusal from next summer, 45 million. He gets sold for more than that this window. He's linked with Arsenal. He's linked with Man United. He's linked with Chelsea. He's linked with all the top clubs, Newcastle, because he's that good. He's technically really good. He's good with the ball at his feet, and he can dictate play. There's no doubt that he leads the football club. And James Ward-Prowse, there's a lot of images of him this week down here in pre-season training, because I reported back on Tuesday. Loads and loads of images of him fist pumping the new manager Russell Martin. But what's the chances of him staying? Because a lot of fans believe they get 50 million for him. I personally don't think he. To my eyes, and the football club want that, supposedly. I don't think they get anywhere near it, to be quite honest. I don't think he's a 50 million football. I think if they got 25 to 35, they'd do well. But everybody that you talk to down here, certainly in the local press, is that they've been approached by a lot of clubs for a lot of players, and they're saying that the asking prices are whopping, and they don't want to move. And the one thing that they spoke about when I went to a fans forum in January is that they felt that they had the financial backing of Dragan Sulak, the main man, and the money was there, and they didn't have to sell, and they didn't have to have a fire sale if they got relegated. And they were prepared to get relegated if they did, and they would stand firm. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about it, Lavia's going to go for 50 odd million, but for, by the sounds of it, Ward Prowse is going to go for 30 odd million. Kyle Walker Peters might have suitors potentially as well. So,
Yeah, he wants to play in the Premier League, definitely. He's already come out and said that.
are we talking nine figures in terms of incomings at Southampton this summer?
Potentially, I think Walker Peters ago. The centre half, Armal Bella he's linked with loads of clubs back in Germany. He was a player that didn't particularly look like he wanted to be there at times last season. He looked disillusioned with the style of play under Nathan Jones. He's young, loses confidence. I think he's a good player. I think he'd be fantastic if they could keep him. He's a very, very good with the ball at his feet. He'd suit Russell Martin down to the ground. And then they've just offloaded Mislav Orsic, who come in January. They spent 8 million on him. They've just let him go for about 3.5, 4 million. So they've made a huge loss in 6 minutes of Premier League football. Totally mismanaged as a player. Played in the semi-final of a World Cup. Played in the third place playoff. You thought when he come in, what a player. The Genk striker as well will go. Paul now at you. They're talking about loan moves. I think Schalke are in for him. Schalke are in for him at the moment. He'd possibly go there, but he'll leave. But I don't think they get money for him. He's unproven, certainly at a high level. So that'd be a loan move. And then I look at the rest of the squad. Romain Perraud, the left back, his agent is Noisy, so he's looking to get him a move. They might fetch back what they paid for him. They'd be looking at maybe 10 million for him, 11 million I think they paid for him. I think here go. And the big one that's been spoke about this week down here is Tino Livramento.
Yes, of course, because he had a very good 21-22 season, didn't he? And then
very good
injury.
Yeah, he got a nasty injury, got an ACL injury, and he's missed since. And he actually made his comeback on the same ground a year later, down at the Amex against Brighton. So Tino's back, but I think from what I saw, he looks rusty. I think he's had soreness with his knee, and I think the injury will take him time. But there's clauses to sell him with Chelsea because he's purchased from Chelsea, where Southampton will have to give a fee to Chelsea. So they're looking to fetch. Newcastle have made a bid for 15 million, which was instantly rejected. But Southampton want closer to 30 to 35 million for him. It's a lot of money for a young player that's had a year out with a nasty injury.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. But I think it's, I suppose, in one sense, we're looking at Southampton from the point of view of a club that needs to rebuild, needs to establish a style of play. But then on the other hand, I think there's probably a bit of trepidation that a lot of Championship rivals would look at Southampton with because of the saleable value that's still in this squad. I mean, I even go to someone like Duje Kaleta, who was Croatian. National. So, I mean, it shows that for Championship level, you've got a lot of quality in that squad.
Yeah, they've got a huge amount of quality there if they could keep some of it together. I think the two that I really like the look of, or the three I like the look of, are the front 3-4. There's 4 players there that could be really, really good. And throw Nathan Tella in if they keep him 5. Nathan Tella, an amazing season. I think he's the golden ticket if the football club keep him. 17 goals last season. It was a huge success at Burnley in the Championship.
One of the best players in the Championship.
Was he good?
Yeah, it was outstanding. Yeah, because he's such an agile operator as well, Martin. He's just somebody he's got the pace over long distances, so he can go on those long sort of lung busting runs. But then he's also got that sort of, I call it like a wriggling quality as well, where he can just get away from people, and he's so agile and skillful. So yeah, I think if you could get him for the Championship, that would be extraordinary. I'd actually assume he might be going to Burnley, but yeah, if you can keep hold of him, that's great.
They've put a price tag on him of 15 million, Southampton have, and I don't think Burnley want to pay it from what they're saying down here in the press. I think he looks happy in training. He's a wonderful player, like you said. I didn't see enough of him last season. I saw bits of him. But I was obviously so focused on our relegation battle and everyone around us, you didn't get time to... You knew you were going to drop into the Championship, but you just didn't watch it enough.
Did it feel inevitable all season?
Yeah. When Jones come in after the World Cup break, I went to watch Lincoln in the I think it was League Cup game against Lincoln, and they looked dreadful. They looked off the pace. Players didn't know the style we wanted to play. The players looked quite dejected early on under him, and I thought, oh my word, they've made a massive, massive mistake with this guy. Huge mistake. The press conferences were poor, didn't speak very well. The fans turned toxic quickly. They were on his back from the get-go. And we played Brighton on Boxing Day at St Mary's, and we looked 3-4 yards off the pace. Looked slow, looked like a Sunday League team against a team that were just quick, pass, snappy, and they outplayed Southampton that day. And then Forest at home, not won on the road all season. They come down and beat us 1-0. That was early January, and I thought, oh, wow, we're in trouble now. And then we played Wolves the next home game. We were 1-0 up. They had a man sent off, and we lost that game in the end. I think we lost 3-1 in the end. We were dreadful that afternoon. And that was his final game. And then when they brought Sellers in, they had 16 games left. Brought in a firefighter, they might have had a chance.
Didn't you? You were at Chelsea in his first game, I want to say.
Yeah, Chelsea been poor. We went there and won. We were really lucky I was there that day. James Ward-Prowse scores a wonderful free kick. Like, unbelievable free kick. And won him the game. And the fans sung his name, and everyone was on the ownership anyway. And I was there. I was a part of it. We all sung his name, and they wanted to appease the fans, and they gave him the job immediately. Instead of waiting,
that's such a bad call, I think.
Yeah, and I spoke to Ricky Lambert about it on our podcast, and we were saying that don't be in a rush. We played Leeds the next week at Ellen Road. Let him take the Leeds game and see where we're at after the Leeds game.
Honestly, Martin, the number of times I see it where the caretaker manager has an instant bounce, especially after a manager who wasn't hugely popular, and then you get this fresh angle, someone coming in, does the simple things well and brings everyone together, and then you get a few, or even one result, and everyone singing his name. That's not the time to make the big commitment. No. Big commitment comes when you've given them an extended period. I remember there was a situation at Charlton a couple of seasons ago where Johnny Jackson, for example, had a massive instant impact, and the first sort of 10 games for him were brilliant, and then things dropped off, and now I think he struggled with Wimbledon last year. So it's these things where it's like you want to, before you commit to a manager, you want to see as big a sample size as possible. And I think putting them on such a small sample size, I just don't think is sensible.
Yeah, it was an awful decision, because you look at it, you've got 16 games to go. With 9 to go, Bournemouth were level in points with us. So it proves if you've got a run together with the start of football, you might have just got out of it. But you've got tools that have been bought for you in January. They spent, 50 million in January. And Sellers didn't use the tools. And I went on a Reading podcast this week, and they were asking about Sellers. And I said, it was unbelievable what went on at the football club. And it doesn't get spoke about because no one will speak out. I'll speak out because I'm a fan and I pay good money to go every week. We were in a relegation fight, and we had injuries in the striker. The striker, it's Shea Adams is injured. He was the main man. He's injured. He's played Theo Walcott there a bit, but he doesn't really want to play out and out striker. They bought Onoachu for 18 million quid. He's there. He's on the bench, and he wouldn't use him. He played false nines. He played midfielders up front. Charlie Alcaraz in a game at West Ham, must win. Didn't play with a striker. It was absolute suicide. Well, he played Mara. He's a young lad coming through. Just didn't really offer enough to score goals. But you've got a guy on the bench who scored 18 goals at Genk. You've got the best dead ball taker in the league, best crosser of a football in Ward-Prowse. Change tactic, start hitting long sometimes, or try and get it wide and get balls in the box. They just didn't do it. And then you had a pacey winger in Kiliman Sinamana, who's a really fast, pacey player. He's one of the players I want to talk to you about, because I feel like he could be really good in the Championship. Didn't use him. It's like bringing him off the bench with 10 to go, 20 to go. It was absolute suicide. And I do believe with the right man, they had enough in that squad. If Bournemouth stayed up, we had enough to stay in that division, in my opinion. Just badly managed.
Talk to me about Salimane then.
Oh, he's a fantastic player. I think he wanted to go out on loan. He's a player that wanted to come and use it as a shop window. He's a club record signing, this boy. But he's a teller, but quicker. So he's got so much pace. He's unbelievable. He's a little bit stronger than Nathan Teller as well. But he's got some real class about him. I think if they could keep him in the division next year, he would he would do a teller and a bit more. I honestly think that. From what I saw of him, he looks really, really good.
Would you call him an out-and-out winger or an inside forward? Or
An inside forward. Inside forward. He likes to come inside. And they've got another player in Carlos Alcaraz, who they bought in January. He's a good player. He's a midfielder, likes to play in the 8 really, or in behind the front man. He's an attacking midfielder, not quick, but he's very good on the ball. I think he'll probably go. I think Brighton want him. There's a few clubs want him. He had some standout games for us last season. The one for me at the Emirates Arsenal away was unbelievable that night. He totally looked at ease. One of the best teams in the league. He played really, really well. He was an awesome player. But if you can combine these players with Shay Adams, who last time he was in the Championship for Birmingham, he scored 22 goals in his last season.
Yeah, I'm a Birmingham fan. I remember him actually.
Prolific, wasn't he?
Yeah, brilliant.
Really good. And then you got Adam Armstrong, who's he's come from the Championship.
Well, it's funny actually. I wanted to talk to you about
28 goals last time round.
28 goals, yeah, Martin.
Unbelievable.
But this is the thing, because I as a sort of someone who follows the Championship, I would look at Adam Armstrong and Che Adams and think, wow, they could be brilliant. But I sort of wonder whether, from a Saints perspective, having seen them play in the Premier League, maybe are you a little bit colder on them than maybe I would be from a Championship sort of perspective?
Yeah, I think, and the fans are as well, because they don't look at it from a Championship perspective. Certainly with Adam, because he's been there for 2 seasons, he's not really scored a great deal of goals. I think he's scored 2-3 Premier League goals. He's not been, and they played him out of position. I'm not sure where he played when he was at Blackburn, but I was under the impression he was an out-and-out striker. They didn't play him as that.
He can sometimes cut in off the left as well.
Yeah, they played him almost on the left of a 3, but a little bit deeper. Shay Adams would play through the middle. For me, I really like Shay Adams. He takes so much stick down here because he doesn't score loads of goals. But he's a really, really good foil for somebody that's got a bit of pace in and around him. He brings people into play and he keeps the ball will stick. I think the manager will quite like him because he's got a lovely touch and he's got a good football brain and he's got a bit about him. He's strong. He's got better as he's been at the football club. When he played with Amanda Broga the season before last, they were really, really good together. They looked a really good partnership. And it'd be interesting to see if they can keep Shay, because there's only 1 year on his contract left. I know Everton want him. I know that they're talking about Burnley wanting him. So he's in demand, and it's whether they're going to cash in on him or trying to get him to sign another contract. It will be really, really interesting.
I think I'd be surprised if Che Adams gets himself a Premier League move, because I would question whether he's done enough in the Premier League to sort of earn that opportunity. I feel like for him and maybe Armstrong as well, it probably is a case of back to the Championship.
They've not scored enough goals, have they?
Yeah, that's the thing. You look at someone like Victor Gyökeres, who's just had an amazing season in the Championship and seems to have all the attributes with Coventry. I feel like he's probably more likely to get that sort of move.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, how many more players are going to be needed for Southampton? You described it as a top-heavy squad, Martin, which suggests to me that you maybe feel although there's a lot of players in this squad, you still feel there's a couple of areas where you may be a little bit short. Yeah,
I think they'll loan off a few others. There's another. I think they brought a lot of young players from Man City last summer. One of those being Samuel Dozier, he's a winger really, or he likes to play out on the wing, sort of like left or right. He can play on. Hasn't got any end product. I think you find the Championship really, really hard. So I would imagine they'd possibly look to loan him out somewhere. Larios is a left back, real short left back. Their bodies, they're young teenagers. By the end of the season, their bodies were done. They were really, really struggling. Adozi just couldn't get game time at the end, and he was just played a lot of football under Jones and really struggled in the Premier League. Premier League's a tough league. Sure. So they maybe loan a few off. So it's going to leave gaps. It's got a 30-man squad at the moment, so he's going to have to trim it. Whatever happens, they need to get it down because he's going to want to bring in his players. And I believe the one I want to talk to you about him and get your views on him.
Sure.
Will be Matt Grimes. Is heavily linked because I'm told that he's his man, his go-to man in the dressing room. The link between the players and the manager. James Ward-Prowse has been that, but we know Prowse will go. You would think. What What's he like, Matt Grimes? For us Southampton fans, we'd love to know all about him.
Sure. He is a really strong midfield controller. He's someone who loves to collect the ball off the defence and ping it out to the flanks. I think he's a very consistent player where you can always guarantee that he's going to be a 7 or 8 out of 10 every game. And I feel like that's kind of what you want from someone at the base of midfield, especially with the way Russ Martin plays. He's obviously got the set piece element as well. So if James Ward-Prowse goes, you're covered from that point of view. He's got a lovely left foot, but he's also capable of sort of dropping into defence at times at certain moments, especially in the early phase of build-up play, because he likes to get on the ball a lot. You see a lot of games, I don't have the exact stats to hand, but I think last season there'll be a lot of games where Matt Grimes would have 100 touches of the ball. And I do feel that for the way Russ Martin plays, someone that always shows for the ball and someone who always has the bravery to want it and keep playing, I think that's going to be really important. So I think it'd be a good signing, definitely. I don't look at Matt Grimes and see he's got so much potential and he's going to get a big. He's going to go to Spurs in 12 months. I don't see that he's got that sort of potential, because I think he's coming up to around sort of mid 20s, might even be older than 25 now. But I think that in terms for what you want in the Championship, a proven Championship performer, I think that'd be a really good signing.
Yeah, he's heavily linked. Jay Fulton's been spoke about loads down here. And the one that they're really talking about, which makes it interesting, that I think that a striker will go out of the football club, and they're talking about Joel Piero, who scored 19 goals in the Championship last season for Swansea.
Sounded like Del Piero there.
Yeah, is he good?
Yeah, he's a good finisher.
Joel.
He's another left footer as well. He's not so much of a hold-up player, but he's a really strong finisher. So
he's not particularly quick, is he? He's quite slow.
Yeah, I think he's got good movement though. Yeah, he's not got searing pace.
Right and left foot, got both feet.
Yeah. I think he's got a bit on both feet. So I think he's just had a good time of things with Swansea for the last couple of years. So, but I mean, I don't necessarily know that Pirro would be way better than Che Adams or Adam Armstrong. I suppose that would be my.
Is Pirro a player that could go and play in the Premier League? Because they say he's holding out for a Premier League club to come in.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because you look at these strikers when they have a really good season in the Championship and you think, yeah, they could play in the Premier League. But you look at how a couple of the lads that we've touched on, Adam Armstrong and Che Adams, have maybe struggled with the step up. And you just kind of, it does feel like it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. But certainly Matt Grimes would definitely be the one that I'd be most keen on.
Yeah, they spoke about him a lot. It's just from the reports in Swansea is whether he wants to uproot his family and come down here. That's what they're speaking about, whether he's ready to do that and whether he wants to do that. I think he'd be fantastic for the football club. From what you're telling me as a player, he sounds very similar to what Ward-Prowse does in that midfield at the moment. He looks to keep the ball moving. Ward-Prowse hasn't got any pace. He's not a quick player, but he keep the ball moving and you find a pass. It doesn't massively influence the game, but he's got a good dead ball. He can do all sorts of, he's worth his weight in gold to have someone that can take a free kick and it's, it's like a strike, it's like a penalty sometimes when you get these free kicks with someone like Prowse. And Matt Grimes is as good at free kicks as he is, but we've got another player that'll be worth looking out for next season, talking about free kicks, and I should mention him really, is Cammy Doyle. He's a young player in the Southampton Academy. They've got 2 academy players that are coming through. 3. There'd be 2 that will probably make that squad next year. And Cammy Doyle's a really good free kick taker. Looks a little bit lightweight at the moment. Made the last 3 squads of the season. Made his debut against Brighton. He looks very good. And the striker, Dominic Ballard, he was unbelievable last season.
Just signed a new deal, hasn't he?
Just signed a new deal. He's highly, highly thought of. Still young. It's whether they take that step up right now. But both of them look really, really good. They're training with the first team. So I think Ballard will get game time next year. I'm sure he will, because there's so many games in that league, isn't there? Time you throw in the cups, you're going to be top heavy with games. So
yeah, you're looking at 50 games, so that's it's a lot. So hopefully he gets his opportunity. Although I do wonder whether there's a world in which he actually gets loaned out, possibly in the second half of the season as well, if if you end up going out of both competitions, then
He's 18, Ballard, so he's still young, still really young.
Still young. Yeah, that's really exciting. Talk to me about how your defence is looking, because I remember it was quite scary when I was looking through the squad, because I've realised Jack Stevens is 29 now.
Yeah.
And I remember watching him as a lad at Swindon when he was this talented young defender, and that was 9 years ago now. But you think, gosh, where's all the time gone? But yeah, he's supposed to be. Do you think he can do well in the Championship?
He's come back from Bournemouth. Bournemouth won him, from what they say. Bournemouth want to sign him on a permanent. And he went out on loan there last year, and it's mad, isn't it? One of our defenders keep a rival in the division, which I find it unbelievable. He should have been called back in January. There should have been a release clause to call him back, because they could have probably done with him, to be quite honest. Kaleta though he's a top player, he really struggled to settle, and I don't know. There's a few antics off the pitch, supposedly. So he didn't. Kaleta didn't play. He played a lad called Lianco, who's a Brazilian defender. Not good enough for the Premier League. Certainly not. He's got hot head. He will lose his cool when he make rash challenge, and he made a lot of mistakes last season. They're speaking to him going. So don't rate him. He's not good enough on the ball for Russell Martin, in my opinion. Jack Stevens, going back to Jack, I think he could be a key man in the squad. He's a leader, isn't he? He's someone that will lead the team. Loves the football club, and he's apparently very, very good in the dressing room. So I'd like to see him in and around the squad, whatever happens. Jan Bednarek, he's another centre half. They got blessed with centre halves. Again, not great with the ball at his feet. Went out on loan at Villa last season because he wasn't deemed good enough. He come back in January under Jones, and he was a permanent fixture in the side. Done all right, but he's not as comfortable with the ball at his feet. And then fullback wise, there's loads of fullbacks, but it's who's going to be left, because Walker Peters will go, Livramento will go, James Breeze there because they brought him in from Luton in January, so sure. He'd be the right back, you would think. Left back Roman Pereira, spoke to you, that I think he might go. And then the goalkeeping situation's massive. Gav. The goalkeeping situation's huge.
I saw Gavin Bazzini for them lot down the road, as we'll call them, and he had a fantastic loan spell there from Manchester City, and his distribution actually looked excellent. And I wondered whether it might have been too much too soon for him coming up to the Premier League from League One. I think that can be a bit of a stretch, but I think he's a really good goalkeeper, and certainly at Championship level, I think he can prove himself capable. Yeah,
he's a great goalkeeper. Massive step going from League One, especially at arch rivals in Portsmouth. He's come in, he's gone straight into the side, and he made him number one straight away. Two other goalkeepers, Alex McCarthy and Willie Caballero. They're both still there. Caballero signed a 1-year extension to his contract. I think he's 41 now, so he'd probably be one of the older goalkeepers in the league.
You'll still have a skeleton of Will Caballero being back up somewhere.
I think for Gav, they killed him a bit at the end of last season. He had a really tough run around December time. I'm not 100% sure that McCarthy was fit, and he didn't really trust Caballero. So they stuck with him in a really horrific spell, and he made a lot of mistakes, and he took a lot of stick. A lot of the fans turned on him a bit, and his distribution was good, but he looked nervy, he looked uncomfortable. He needed taken out the side for a bit, and they never did it. So what did he do? Alex McCarthy to keep him at the club on a certain amount of money, he supposedly had to play a certain amount of games. Ruben Sellers, being close to the players, is very friendly to a lot of the players. He brings Alex McCarthy back in for the last 4 or 5 games, and he never played again, Gavin Bazunu. So he just took him out the side. It was harsh on him. It was the wrong time to take him out of it, because he was going to want him to be. I want him to be our goalkeeper next season. I still think that McCarthy will probably go because he's a high earner. He's the third highest earner at the football club.
Yeah. But can you offload him though?
This is the biggest problem. Obviously, you have a relegation clause where his money will get decreased, but his body language says a lot sometimes. I don't think he particularly looks bothered. I don't want him to be the number one in the football club next season, personally. I wouldn't want to see Alex McCarthy as number one. But yeah, like you say, where's he going to go? Who's going to want him? There is going to be a bit of a goalkeeper merry-go-round, but Where does he fit? Where does he go? So he's got, an extension of his contract the year before last. So he's got another, I think he's got another year and a half, 2 years on his contract. So he's probably going to sit tight.
Blimey, he gave a 3-year contract to a 30, however, I'm not sure exactly
how
old.
Do you know the most amazing thing out of it? At the time, Hasenhüttl was a manager, and I'm well in touch with the goalkeeper union. There's 2 goalkeepers that had contracts expiring, Fraser Forster and Alex McCarthy, and he said to them, they're going to play X amount of games each, and one of them will get a contract. And in the end, he gave it to Alex McCarthy. Alex McCarthy got injured, he had to use Fraser Forster. Fraser Forster, the season before last in the Premier League, probably kept us up. He was unbelievable. Fantastic goalkeeper. Coming to the end of his career now, really. He's like in his early 30s. Top experienced goalkeeper. Would have been huge last season for us. I think with him, we would have got another 5 to 8 points with Alex McCarthy. With Fraser Forster, not Alex McCarthy last year, in my opinion. But decisions made at our football club have been horrific.
Yeah. And I suppose that comes down to, do you have confidence in good decisions to be made from this point onwards?
No, I don't think the fans do. I don't think any of us do. I think you're kind of giving it the benefit of the doubt. But so far, since Sport Republic took control of the football club, it's been an absolute disaster. They come in the January before last. And ever since, they had a horrific kind of downhill spiral at the back end of that season, only managed to just stay up. Should have changed the manager if they didn't want the manager. It's only because of the World Cup break they changed him when they did. Inevitably, they've spent money, huge sums of money that we've never seen before. Over 2 windows, 150 million, and got relegated. Where years gone by, we've hardly spent a penny, and we've managed to do okay. So, I think recruitment's massive at any football club, and it will be at Southampton. Jason Wilcox comes in as the director of football, which he starts his role today. This is officially his first day. He would have been in and around the football club, but it's officially his first day today. So he takes charge of all football decisions. So he will be in charge of the transfer philosophy. They say work very closely, obviously, with the manager. And it will be interesting. There's been so much change at the football club. So many people left their roles. Chief Executive Martin Simmons, he left several weeks ago. Toby Steele, who was the secretary, director, he was a director of the club as well. He's gone. The amount of people behind the scenes left the football club is unbelievable.
That's quite a worrying thing for me, because I feel like in order to make this Russ Martin project work, the club is going to have some conviction behind the idea, because I think what you've got at the moment and what you've described with this Southampton squad is a bit like a bowl of pasta that's part spaghetti, that's part tortellini, that's part pen, for example. Yeah. And it's all a mixture that's
it's a total mismatch. Yeah,
total mismatch. And I almost think that the club's gonna need to be able to just take a year or two to just commit to a long-term vision and sort of even out to say that you do end up with a bowl of spaghetti. And it doesn't feel like it feels like that's a long way off. So hopefully the club can show the conviction required, but it's difficult because you seem to have a lot of players who just don't suit what Russ Martin's going to want to try and do, even though there is quality in there.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is the concern, really, is that the balance of the squad was so wrong last season because it was too young, too inexperienced. And I think in this league, all we're linked with at the moment is younger players. I think there's a lot of talk of Wilcox is going to go back to City and get a couple of rising talents. I just think you need, on loans. Yeah, and I just think you need experience in the division, people that know the league. I spoke to Ricky Lambert on the Southampton Way podcast that I do, and he come on and he spoke about the season that they were in League One and the Championship and had consecutive promotions, and he spoke about why. And we asked him, what was the key, Ricky? What went on? What was it that brought you all together? And he said leaders and a core spine of the team: goalkeeper, centre half, central midfielder, striker. And they had a really good core.
Everything as well.
Take him.
And an alignment through everything.
An alignment, yeah. Top to bottom. What do you want to do as a football club? Who's buying the players? It's all well good. They'll be buying players for Hasenhüttl under 2 regimes, to be fair, not under just Sport Republic. He didn't want Shay Adams. He said he didn't want Championship players. They bought Shay Adams and Adam Armstrong. So you have these people that are buying players and they've got no idea what the manager wants. There's no alignment to the style of football that the manager wants to play and what players are going to bring in to fit it, because they brought in all these players last January. A big part of that was Joe Shields, who's now at Chelsea. He was the transfer man. He was the so-called like a director of football, but he was the scout. He oversaw the transfer business. He brought the players in. But they had to take a real look at the squad with the manager and have a look what was missing, because the players they bought didn't fit the style of play. Other than Romeo Lavia, he's the only one that's come in that they really needed. And they needed that good holding midfielder, someone that was comfortable on the ball. But the rest of them, Dozy, you had Nathan Teller. Why did you bring Samuel Dozy when you had Nathan Teller? Just needed the chance in the Premier League. Just wouldn't be given consistent games. And it really, totally frustrates me.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. Flipping that on its head, Martin, I've got to predict my 1 to 24s in a few weeks, which is going to certainly be interesting. I wanted to ask you, what would be the reason for me to be massively in favour of Southampton having a good season and strongly challenging for that top 2?
I just think some of the players they've got in if they keep them, I think the attacking players they've got are really, really good. And I think they'll score loads of goals. Teller, Silamana, Alcaraz, Shea Adams, Adam Armstrong will be really, really good next season. I think that they could score loads and loads of goals between them. Dominic Ballard, if he can make an impact and come through. Some exciting attacking talent. So, they might concede a load of goals, but I think they'll score loads of goals if they keep those attacking players. So, I think they'll be a high-scoring team. I really do.
Okay, we'll see about that one. And then on the flip side, from a slightly more cautious perspective, the danger of Southampton maybe missing out on the top 6. Would it be what we've just discussed in terms of the fact that there isn't really an alignment and there isn't a lot of trust in the people running the club?
Yeah, the mentality at the football club has been a losing mentality. A lot of those players that are in that squad now, is if they get left there, a lot of them, they all think they're Premier League players. I'll see them rock up to training this week, first pre-season session, laughing, joking. Come on, guys, we've been relegated. It's down to business. It's not wear fancy rubbish into training. We mean business now. We've got to get ourselves together and really pull ourselves together. And I think there's a losing mentality. I think there needs to be a shift behind the scenes, and that will be the doubt, the big issue there, the inexperience of the players. And the manager will have to get them on side quickly. He will have to be really, really ruthless really quickly. And do you know what I really hate about the league, or all the leagues at the moment, is that transfer window. So we're going to start probably the first 3-4 games with a bunch of players that might not be there when the window closes. I just wish the window was closed before the season starts, because you can say, right, that's going to be our side. This is what we're going to go with.
Actually, just on that, Martin, it's so interesting you say that, because when Norwich won the title at this level a couple of years ago, they actually started the season quite slowly, and in August their form was sort of so-so. And then once the window closed, it was like, well, right, you've got to sort of buckle down and get
You're
on
here
now at least, because there isn't a move that's on the table. You can't be on your phone talking to your agent or looking at other moves. You've got to focus on the football, and I think that the window can sometimes be a distraction as well. And I think that sometimes that can sort of be a bit of a hindrance for a club like Southampton, where you do have a lot of good players who would probably want to play in the Premier League or at a different level. And really, you've kind of it can be a bit of a distraction. So I totally agree with you. It probably August could be a tricky month.
I think it'd be a really hard month, and it's patience, isn't it? Like with the manager, they're going to have to show some patience now. I don't think for 1 minute the fan base or the ownership will have any patience. I think Henrik Kraft, who's the chairman of the football club, he's acting as the interim CEO. He has been. He's a part of the Sport Republic group. Come out straight after relegation, and they said they feel they've got the infrastructure, they're going to back it, and they want to win the league.
Is he going to be CEO for the start of this season?
No. They're in the process of changing that over at this moment in time. There's a massive restructure. There's people coming into the football club now, But Kraft is sat on that board. He's a key decision maker along with Erasmus Ankersen.
And from what you're saying, there's no sense of what we've talked about, which is patience and building up.
There won't be any.
Right.
I don't believe there'll be any. I think they expect to go straight back up, and they want to.
That does worry me, to be honest, then, Martin, because if I look at Russ Martin's career, his biggest achievements have been how his teams have looked from a coaching perspective. So what's tended to happen is, so at MK Dons, he came in mid-season when they're sort of struggling and out of form, stabilised things. The second season, they had a team that was really good between both boxes and looked really well coached, but they finished mid-table. And possibly had small details at both boxes. And I thought the following season that they would really kick on under Russ Martin, but that was when he went to Swansea. Similar thing, he went to Swansea just before the start of the season, so he didn't have much time to get his ideas across. And then the second season at Swansea, a bit like his second season at MK Dons, Swansea were a really good, well-coached team that were good between both boxes. And then you're thinking they could be good next season. And then he's gone to Southampton. So he's kind of built this career. It's a weird case where he's built this career off style, off the way his teams have been coached, off the athletic appeal, I suppose, without really having anything of substance. Swansea have replaced Russ Martin with a manager in Michael Duff, who's achieved a lot more in the lower divisions in terms of what you can see on paper. So if you're bringing in Russ Martin for a stylistic revolution or evolution, that's one thing where you're prepared to be patient with it. But to bring in Russ Martin and say, we absolutely expect the title or automatic promotion, I think it's a really dangerous game, Martin. I really do.
I do. No, I do. He wasn't the first choice neither. It wasn't the first choice. The first choice is the guy that's gone to Leicester. I think it was well spoken of in the press down here that they wanted the guy that went to Leicester. Pep's assistant manager. He was obviously a big link with Jason Wilcox, and they really wanted him down here. They've done some quite good business early doors, Leicester, by the way. Brought in some experience straight away. Connor Cody, what a signing, by the way.
Yeah.
I can't believe we weren't even linked with him. He, I spoke to my boss, Asmir Begovic. I worked with Asmir Begovic. He spoke to me about Connor Cody because he was at Everton with him last season. Said he's a terrific, unbelievable. He said he's unbelievable human.
Shirt at the back for the Zoom calls with him. So
yeah, we do a few podcasts every now and then. We do a brand podcast for Asmir's brand, and he spoke to me at length about Cody. He said he was fantastic, real good leader. But what's still at Leicester? And that's the sort of signings I want Southampton Football Club to be making. And I'm concerned about next season. I'll be totally honest with you. I don't think I'm realistic as a football fan. I think it'd be really, really hard. I think we've had a losing mentality for a long time. And I think it'd be really, really, that lot are not going to drop down from the Premier League and stay with us, a load of those players, and just all of a sudden start pulling on a shirt and start trying. Because last season in the Premier League, a lot of them down tools. They're a disgrace for the last 10 games, a lot of those players. And I will be with the majority of Southampton fans. They'll be delighted to see the back of some of these players.
Well, that's not the most upbeat way of ending it, but I think it's the most realistic way of ending it.
Yeah, it is.
It's certainly a tough season ahead for Southampton. I think there can be some optimism with the quality that you've got and the income that you're probably going to bring in, and what you're going to be able to do in the window. Because with the parachute payments as well, I am expecting you to be able to spend, but it's clear something isn't quite right behind the scenes as well. So certainly a lot of food for thought there. But I wish you all the best. What are your any podcasting plans with the Southampton Way coming up for next season?
Yeah, we'll be back with the Southampton Way podcast just before the season starts. We're going to do a similar to what we've just done now. We're going to do a recap, have a look ahead to the transfer business. I really enjoy the Twitter Spaces. The big thing down here is the Saints Space is always good, put together by a group, and we get on and we'll talk usually on the Sunday. And you'll get like a few thousand fans on there all talking. So I'll go on as many podcasts as I can, certainly as well. Certainly with any big fixtures coming up, I'll jump on other podcasts as well with other clubs. So I'm excited to see the Championship, see how we fare. And I'm looking forward to seeing the standout team. Looking forward to Middlesbrough. They're kind of my favourite at the moment. I don't know about you, who your favourite is, but I like the look of Michael Carrick and what he's done at Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I expect them to go well for sure. Listen, Martin, such a pleasure to discuss Southampton on the EFL debate, Saints Summer Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
It's been
Thanks
a
to you
pleasure.
for watching us at home as well. This has been EFL Debate, the Southampton Summer Deep Dive, and we'll see you again very soon.